advertising from both sets of minutes. Well done. Follow-up items from the previous regional council meetings on page 3, and I'll hand that over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 3 out of the 4 of these follow-up items are dealt with today on the agenda. Item number 2, public information workshops and council workshop on water consenting issues to be organised. A number of councillors plus staff attended a hui at the Taiwhenua o Hiratonga on the 15th of June, and I'm meeting on Friday with members of the Taiwhenua to discuss 2 things. One is the some of the processes that can be put in place to resolve some of their concerns that were expressed at that hui, and secondly to look at dates and organisational arrangements for further public information workshops around that. So once I've met with them on Friday, I'll be able to update you on that.
Question. Could I just ask how information, or who was invited to that? Because I didn't get notification. Was there general notification to all councillors to put it up into them?
Not from us. The invitation was extended by the type, actually from Ngāti Kahungunu Iwi Incorporated to, and it specifically invited the chair of council, the chairs of the regional planning committee and the Māori committee. So Mr. Mohi, Councillor Wilson and Mr. Waka were specifically invited by us, and the invitation, was not ours to extend further. So it was at the behest of Nikki.
What was it all about?
Of the Taiwhenua, not Nikki.
My letter came from Nikki.
Oh, your letter was from Nikki. Okay. Question, Councillor?
Yeah, what was it all about?
They had a range of issues they wished to discuss with council, including water rights, relationships.
Yes. It had come from a freshwater hui that they had held back in April, and they had a range of issues identified that they wished to meet with the regional council face to face to discuss.
With representatives of the regional council?
Yes.
That they invited. There were other councillors there at the behest of Taiwhenua, which were Hastings councillors, Councillor Belford, Bevan and Councillor Graham. Yeah. So I suggest any further discussions, we should really have a full council representation.
It's bad precedent.
Well,
pick and choose.
Well, they chose though.
Well, that's bad judgment on their part, in my view.
But
because if they want support, they need the voters. They need support from 9 councillors.
To be fair, Councillor Dick, it's the beginning of a probably more constructive discussion than we've had for some time with the Taiwhenua. So I think that was positive, actually. We didn't agree on too much on the night, but at least we've got a line in the sand now. We can have a chat. So. Any further?
No.
Oh, so the rest is dealt with in the papers. Any further questions? So I'm happy to move then that we accept this report. Councillor Scott, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bevan. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Minor items. Councillor Bevan.
White baiting.
Ooh. And if it's happening now, it's definitely out of season, Councillor Bevan. So be careful there. No. We'll
Din.
beg your pardon?
Din. D-I-N.
Din. Okay.
And I note that there is no report here from HBRC, and I'm wondering whether we can get some update from them on progress with RWECS as a minor item.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, probably with difficulty. I mean, we did look at potentially having putting on there a verbal update, but there's actually there's still no decision from the Board of Inquiry, and both the chair of HBRC and the CEO of HBRC are not in the region today, so on balance it was decided not to present anything.
Councillor Barker.
Tomato mushrooms. Sorry, tomato mushrooms.
Tomato mushrooms, yeah, very good. Councillor Belford.
Otani sewage discharge consents and regional research centres.
Research centres, very good. Others, Councillor Scott.
Karamu environmentalists.
Environmentalists, okay. And Councillor Dick.
Mr Chairman, I'd like to
And my report.
raise a matter in committee in relation to East Coast Rail, which would be a minor item and not involve debate, but it would be justified to be in committee on the basis of commercial negotiation.
Okay, so when we go to public excluded, you wish to raise a minor item there? Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Other general business, minor items, sorry. Thank you. Okay, let's go. Affixing the common seal on page 11.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Fairly standard stuff this month, 1 staff warrant and 7 leasehold land sale.
Questions? Happy to move. Someone, thank you, Councillor Scott. Happy to move. We have a seconder for that. I'm happy to second that. Put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Report and recommendations from Finance, Audit and Risk Subcommittee. And with the indulgence of the chair of that committee, I will hand over to her. Please, obviously, at the end of that sentence.
Can you just clarify, am I speaking to this paper or?
Do you have anything to add to this paper as the chair of that committee?
Well, just a comment, as the chair, we're supposed to be reporting first to corporate and strategic, but as it turned out on the day, it was the only item on the agenda, so I made the call to just move it straight to council.
Okay.
So that's why it's come straight here.
So any questions around what's here from anyone? You happy to move?
We're happy to move it, yes.
Happy to move. We have a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Scott. Further discussion. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Alternate councillor member on the Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazards Strategy Joint Committee. Which
Mr.
is
Chairman, I'm happy to move the recommendation option 1. Sorry, option 2.
option
Only
1,
read
option 2.
two.
Okay. Was there a second? Is there a seconder for that?
Are you-
Mr. Chairman, and
Sorry, are you happy to,
Have you got any questions? Or first, or
are you happy to, because I was actually going to nominate Councillor Belford. You're an ex officio member anyway.
well, it's been moved and seconded.
Mr. Chairman, I'm moving
Let
this.
two speak and then-
The reason that and because you are ex officio is it means that you are fully conversant with the issues, and I think that to get the continuity, that's absolutely essential. So
Seconder.
No, that was my thinking as well, the continuity actually, and an aspect of, from your perspective, you're very much au fait with it, so I'm quite happy to support.
Councillor Bevan.
Yeah, Chair, I'm going to vote against this, and I'm hoping 5 councillors will vote against this simply because it's an opportunity for us to get one other councillor involved as an alternate, as it may or may not prove necessary to attend meetings. And my view is that you can attend the meetings anyway, and of course you're very welcome to attend, although it's not always going to fit into your calendar to do so. But my view is that the more of our councillors who are au fait with the process and what's happening, and it's going to be probably a 2 or 3 year process, the more knowledge we have around this table, and I think that's highly desirable. So it's it's nothing against you at all. It's just the opportunity to have someone else involved, Chair.
And no offence taken. Any other speakers? Well, let's test this, and I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. So do we need a show of hands? I'm ambivalent. All those in favour? And against? Carried. Thank you. Okay. We're now at the adoption of the long-term plan, but I need some advice here from the staff. We're still waiting for the auditor to come back, is that correct?
Yes, Mr Chairman, I spoke to the auditor prior to coming to this meeting, and he undertook to get a clearance just after 10. So there's some last minute issues like there always are. So we're hopefully getting that clearance after 10 o'clock.
Okay, so let's leave that, park that for now. And let's go to item 12, Building Act Responsibilities and Liabilities, because I see Wayne is here. Good morning, sir. Which is item 12 on page 31. Which is quite a tome of the paper, actually.
Excuse me. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I understand this question arose. There was a question relating to what our council's liability was in relation to us transferring the Building Act work to the Waikato Regional Council in terms of dams. And I'll just quickly go through as written. The short answer is that we are covered, but I'll go through what we have here. The Building Act in 2004 required all regional authorities to be accredited and registered as building consent authorities by November 2007. And if a council did not wish to undertake all or part of its statutory building control functions, it was able to contract out or transfer some of its functions to another regional council that was both accredited and registered to undertake functions as a building consent authority. And for reasons of efficiency, all regional councils and unitary authorities within the country agreed to work together to determine how best to achieve accreditation and registration as required by the Act. And it was agreed that all North Island regional councils would transfer their BCA functions to the Waikato Regional Council, and all South Island regional councils will do the same to the Otago Regional Council. Canterbury Regional Council carried out that function themselves, so they did not transfer. A major consideration when determining what course of action was to be taken was the issue of indemnity and insurance. And at the time, councils obtained an analysis of risks and liabilities from the company DLA Phillips Fox, and that's summarised at the back of attachment 1. And that outlined the preferred option and addressed the risks and liabilities associated with that in some detail. And there's a legal opinion there too, which is still relevant as the legislation has not materially changed since that date. Approval to transfer the BCA functions to the Waikato Regional Council was granted via this council's Environmental Management Committee in July 2007, and updates were provided in February and July, and those are also attached here in 2008, and also attached in attachment 1. By way of background, Waikato Regional Council is an accredited and registered building consent authority under the BCA. Those documents I just referred to do not outline in any great detail the issues surrounding liability, but there is a subsequent memorandum of understanding and deed of transfer between this council and all other North Island regional councils and the Waikato Regional Council to do so. That's in attachment 2. That attachment is the most recent MOU and deed of transfer, and the matters of insurance and indemnity are contained from items 11 to 19. Waikato Regional Council will have public liability and professional indemnity insurance against all actions, claims, proceedings and demands by any third party, and they actually do have that. and the premium payments for this insurance is covered equally between this council, Waikato Regional Council, and all the other North Island regional councils. And in terms of uninsured damages, losses, costs and expenses incurred by Waikato, where they might be attributed to them by judgment of the courts, this council will share those costs evenly with the other 6 transferring regional councils and the Waikato Regional Council. This council has limited liability insurance to cover such an eventuality, and the limit for both public liability and professional indemnity is $200 million. That's the information that I have and I can share with you. Are there any questions on that?
Questions?
Mr. Barker?
Councillor Barker.
In one of your documents, you state, while legal liability arising under statute cannot be contractually assigned, responsibility for any financial consequences of it can. Please explain that.
Well, that is, sorry?
Sorry?
Yeah, essentially that means you can, in terms of the financial, you can't transfer blame, but you can basically insure yourself for it.
But my question is, so it also goes on to say that indemnify here at 80%, I presume we've covered off the rest and subsequent things, but my question is, what is the legal liability that we are responsible for? Now, all this is about, if the things go wrong, then someone else pays the costs. But in a lot of health and safety legislation, you cannot insure or contract out your liability for any payments or fines that may be imposed. Now, is this the case similarly in the Building Act? And it says here quite clearly in your documentation, the legal liability cannot be contractually be assigned. So we are still going to be legally liable. It seems to be all we've done is attempted to contract out any resulting costs.
Let's get an answer here.
Oh, well, I can't give you an answer because I've provided you the legal opinion, and as far as I'm with you, that's all I can tell you. You're asking for a further legal opinion.
Could I perhaps answer? Council has transferred its responsibility for acting as a building consent authority in respect of dam consents. So that's what it's transferred that responsibility under the Resource Management Act. That means that the authority to whom it's transferred that does have the legal liability, not the council, because we do not issue building consents under the in this case under the Building Act or the RMA. So in a sense there's no legal liability to transfer. We have transferred our responsibility to undertake it, but we have not transferred our legal liability. So what the memorandum of understanding says is that they take all the responsibility, as it were, for any potential failures or anything else like that. But the memorandum of understanding makes it clear that there's a shared responsibility financially in terms of premium payments for the insurance for a start.
Well, that's an interesting explanation, but it still doesn't address the point that I've made. The first point I'd make is that regardless of what parties themselves arrangements they enter into, you cannot avoid a statutory liability. So if the statute says this regional council is responsible, then regardless of whatever arrangements we make ourselves with other regional councils, we cannot avoid the statutory responsibility. And in this paper here it says the legal liability arising under the statutes cannot be contractually assigned. That's what this paper says, and you're telling me it can be.
No, I'm saying that we don't have a legal liability because we are not a building consent authority. We're not a building consent authority. So we can't issue
It's not our building consent.
It's not our building.
So
No, but it is our dam.
Microphone, Councillor Graham.
He is right. Councillor Barker is right, of course. You cannot, under the law, transfer, get rid of your responsibility. If you bring a contractor onto your farm and he's a chainsaw, you can ask him to do the best you can. If he chops his leg off, you're still responsible. And it's the same here. But you got to say it's, and I was going to speak to this, so I wanted to speak to this later, but you cannot legally transfer responsibility, but you're covered by a $200 million.
Any other questions? Someone happy to move that we receive this report then? Thank you, Councillor Graham. We have a seconder in Councillor Scott. Thank you. Wish to speak, Councillor Graham? You'll hold your powder dry. Okay, Councillor Scott? You'll reserve your right. Other speakers? Councillor Barker, then
Well,
Councillor Belford.
Could I just say that, thank you for the report. I have to say that I still remain unconvinced. My view is if the Building Act gives the responsibility to the Regional Council for Dams, and that's what's in the statute, then according to this document here, the Regional Council cannot contract out of its legal liability. Yes, it can make other arrangements for the costs. I accept that. But what I think is a residual issue here is what is our legal liability over and above and beyond that. And I have yet to be convinced that we have transferred our legal liability, because the consent will be issued ultimately in the name of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. So I remain unconvinced.
Councillor Belford, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, this will actually be a question, but as this applies to the RWSS, in the conditions there's a requirement by the Board of Inquiry to have a special peer review panel, sort of a wholly separate entity or group of people to make pass judgment, I guess, on the adequacy of whatever design is come up with for that dam. That group of people, as I understand this, would basically become effectively an advisor to this other council for it to execute its approval process regarding that dam?
Are you saying that they would be providing advice to the Waikato Regional Council? Is that what you're
I
saying?
guess that's my question, is who are they advising in this circumstance? Are they, do we have any?
I'm not certain, sir. I don't know.
Okay. Wish to speak further, Councillor Belford?
I've got a question. I think it was about Councillor Barker indicated that, in his view, if a consent was made for a new dam, be it RWSS or any other, that the consent would be issued in the name of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. Would that be the case, or would it be issued in the name of the Waikato?
We'll take this question and then we'll back to debate. Actually,
I'd have to double check that, but my understanding is while the consent is issued by the Waikato Regional Council, it is on behalf of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council.
sure. Okay. Seconder, you've reserved your right. Now is your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually do feel, going through this, that we're in Alice in Wonderland. This was an information paper. The information was pretty thorough, and suddenly we're debating all sorts of acts and offering opinions on those. The question that was never asked and should have been asked is, are there any residual risks and liabilities that have not been adequately mitigated? And I think the answer to that question would have been a resounding no. This was done very thoroughly. It was, all the risks were calculated. This was done in the interests of getting the best outcome in terms of administering the Act and giving the best outcome for the people applying for consents with an efficient and well-qualified service. So,
Follow whiskey.
I thank the staff for putting together all that information again, and it's very clear and it's very plain that this council has acted with fully responsibly in exercising its powers to transfer those responsibilities.
Councillor Graham. sum up.
Firstly, I would like to say that I read these papers thoroughly, including the memorandum of understanding. I think that the process is eminently sensible. We're very small populations, and this is a big task, and that we collectively get together and get one unit in the South Island and one in the North Island to do this function seems to me to be sensible from a commercial standpoint, and gathering those expertise. So first of all, I really like the process. I do agree with Councillor Barker, you can never ever clearly write yourself out of liability, no matter what you do today, and so it could bounce on you in some way, but I noted that we're covered, 200 million insurance would cover most things, and those are just some of the risks that you have to take doing jobs such as these. So I strongly support the process, I strongly support what we do here, and I think a pretty good job's been done to mitigate any risk and liability to us.
That was the final speaker. Sorry, Councillor
I
Day.
asked a question. I haven't spoken.
You haven't spoken, but that was the summing up of the debate
Oh, it was
to
the
receive
summing
the
up.
report.
Oh.
Ask Mr. Wright offline, perhaps. We'll
No, I'll just have to vote against it.
receiving the report. Okay, so those in favour of receiving the report, please say aye. And against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wright.